All right, I'm about to show you exactly how an 80-person church raised $100,000 in one single night. And here's the crazy part that matters. They didn't even do everything that we recommended for them to do. In this training, I'm going to walk through what actually makes a difference and how you can apply the same things that this church did to your organization, whether that's a nonprofit, a church, or just any other mission-driven organization. And if you're wondering whether this only applies to small churches, I promise you that it does not. So stick with me because I'm going to show you, like I said, how you can take these same principles and apply them at scale, whether that's something that you're doing as a single night event all the way up to a $20 million plus capital campaign. It's going to be pretty fun. So before we jump in, I want to give you some quick context on who this is for and really who this is not for, who I am and who I work with. So like I said, I work with churches, nonprofits, mission-driven organizations that need help with fundraising, operations, branding, and marketing. Really, you could think of it as revenue-generating operations. My team really focuses on things that are going to drive the needle towards growth and towards revenue. And all these other pieces come into play. We're not just doing things that are fun to look at. We're not just doing things that feel exciting whenever you are talked to by a pastor or a leader of an organization. We are doing things that literally take you from $0 to many more dollars, $100,000, $1 million, whatever it is. We are scaling organizations. We're helping you figure out what that means to scale. So these aren't just the campaigns, but they are the systems and the leadership structures underneath them that help everything be successful. This includes supporting capital campaigns designed to raise between 10 to 20 plus million dollars, helping churches prepare their teams for long-term generosity, sustainable giving, not just one moments. Those are great. Like we're going to talk about those $100,000 nights, wonderful. But long-term sustainable growth and sustainable donors are huge. And stepping into nonprofit organizations during a time of real crisis is something that my team has had experience with. It's something that we find very fulfilling and we're very passionate about because, like it or not, every organization goes through stuff. And whenever you don't have an outside set of eyes evaluating for you and helping you just think through things to have a clear mindset, it can be hard. So that's what we try to do for organizations as well. I have a cool story about that here in a little bit. So in this one case I'm thinking about in particular, we worked with a nonprofit whose internal team structure had completely just broken down. I mean, the roles of the people were unclear, the communication was fractured, and fundraising ultimately just really stalled at that time. We helped them restructure. We helped the entire team get on track. We helped teach. We had to teach a lot of fundraising and a lot of marketing and a lot of operational clarity to a team because they had nobody leading them. They had no resources. And whenever we got done with this team, I have multiple conversations with their leadership and even from every top, from the CEO all the way down to the part-time and volunteer level roles. And they just could not say thank you enough to my team for everything that we did to help them grow. And we really left them, I believe, in a better position. They would tell you, in a better position than we found them. So we helped them restructure the entire team while the pressure was on. We had to continue fundraising. We had to continue operating. And we had to continue looking towards the future to grow and fix the holes that were there at the moment. And then we had a huge event, and a 3-day event turned into $400,000 raised for them. And later on, they went on to host their largest donor dinner fundraising event ever. And not just large in size, but large in return on investment. So you're like, Steven, that's great, but I came here to learn about how I can take my church or my organization and make impact in a single night or with fundraising and marketing. And we're getting to that. The reason I'm sharing this is not just to stack numbers and tell you about how great I am and how great my team is, even though we are amazing, but it is to say this. The principles that you're about to hear and I'm about to share with you don't depend on your church size. They don't depend on your donor count. And they don't depend on how much hype you can build. They depend on sequence, clarity, momentum. Those three: sequence, clarity, and momentum. So let's go back to this $100,000 night that I mentioned earlier, because honestly, it's a really good and simple example, and it exposes where most organizations just get things wrong. Let's break it down. Number one, most churches treat fundraising moments like isolated events. I had a client come to me recently and they asked me, Stephen, how do we take our social media and approach fundraising on social? How do we communicate what we're doing as a whole in every channel? It doesn't feel right. We can't say the right words. We don't feel like we're being authentic and genuine. So I had them pause and I explained to them that essentially your fundraising needs to not feel different than how you communicate normally. That's not to say you're always asking for money. What I mean by this is that your heart and the drive of who you are should just position people very well into a giving attitude. People want to give you money. I had a friend one time that he was a leader of a nonprofit organization, and he said, it's amazing how many people want to give you money. You just have to ask. 100% accurate. So going back to most churches treat fundraising like isolated events is because they don't see the alignment from your message of who you're impacting and the money associated with that. So whether you're preparing for a single giving night, a donor dinner, or a multi-year capital campaign, the same rule applies. Momentum is built before the money is ever mentioned. Build momentum in the hearts of the people. In the $100,000 night example, the lead up wasn't about asking, it was about the narrative that was built. We focused on consistent email cadence and communication through social, text, email, like I said, and communications with donors. We created clarity around the mission and urgency around the need, and helping people emotionally locate themselves in the story. It is one of the best pieces of advice that I could give you to think about one very specific donor that you know when you write any piece of email, text, sermon, script, phone call, thank you note. Think about a very specific persona, whether you're talking to a major donor who may be giving a 6-figure and up gift, or you're talking to somebody who's giving $20 a month, or you're talking to somebody who gave $5 once and you're trying to see where they're at with your organization. Think about them, have an idea in your mind when you're talking to them of how can I help this specific person speak directly to their pain points, and I know that they're with this organization for a reason. So want people to be connected in your story. This is the same work that we do with the front end of large capital campaigns as well. If you haven't been doing this before and you want to just jump into a capital campaign and start to do this, there does need to be lead up. You need to have feasibility studies. You need to be communicating with donors. We can break that down later, but yeah, it does work. It's just oftentimes way more compressed. When people walk into a moment that's designed and they already are aligned with what you're doing, generosity isn't going to feel forced. It is going to feel obvious. This is why pastors struggle on Sundays with the offering and the tithe and all of these things. How do we approach giving in our church just on a daily basis? Often it's because the moment doesn't feel aligned. You don't feel connected with the audience, and that's why a lot of churches nowadays skip it. So it's something that we can work on. The second thing that's important to recognize about this night is that it's also very important to build an atmosphere in the room of expectation and excitement. It is very important that you structure the night with every thought and every minute accounted for. I'm not going to say planned, because it really depends on how the night goes and whether you want to use planned or not, but accounted for. You want to know what is going to happen. You want to know how you're going to approach certain situations. If there's somebody you need to talk to, you need to make sure that they are talked to correctly. If you know somebody's going to give big and they make a big deal of it that night, or maybe you don't know, but you want to plan for that maybe happening, have a plan in place. I've seen this fail in churches of very small congregations, around 50 people, and churches raising tens of millions. It's the same problems. The mistake is always the same. It comes down to too much talking, too much explaining. Nobody's here to sit through a financial planning session, and not enough intentional flow. Like I said, you haven't planned things out very well. So for example, in this $100,000 night, the structure was very simple. It was why we're here, what is God doing, and what faithfulness looks like now for the person involved, for the donor, for the member, for the visitor. What does faithfulness look like for them? right now. We didn't use pressure language. We didn't use tactics. We didn't use emotional manipulation. We didn't oversell. All we did is we broke it down to the fundamentals. This is the same approach we use in donor dinners, in capital campaign gatherings, because to be honest, generosity accelerates when people feel clarity, not coercion. The Bible is very clear. Really cool stories. Go back to Exodus, one of the first times we ever saw fundraising in the Bible. God sends Moses down to the people. He tells them, tell the people to give what is on their heart to give. They gave so much that God had to tell Moses, go back, tell them to stop giving. So that is how we approach these nights. The night doesn't create generosity. It reveals what's in their heart. It reveals generosity within your congregation or within your group, whoever you're talking to. So this last piece of the puzzle is the part that almost everybody skips. So pay attention here. It is the reason that many campaigns just stall. Before the $100,000 night ever happened, there was very intentional conversations we had with key stakeholders and donors. These are not mass emails that went out to them. These were not public announcements that went out to them. These were personal conversations with key stakeholders. You would call them major donors, mid donors, depending on what level donors you have. They're the ones who are going to really be moving the needle, who are involved desperately in the operations of the organization from a financial level. They really do care about what's happening here, and you want to make sure that you're aligned with them. So this is also where capital campaigns are won or lost. You can't go to raise $20 million for a new building and the donors only care about sending water to Africa. Those don't align. So either you need to find a way to make them align, or you need to come up with some other plan to get that donor on board. So to clarify, these conversations aren't will you give? They are though, do you see this vision? Does this align with your heart? In the nonprofit crisis that I was talking about earlier, these conversations were happening while the organization was being restructured, while they were going through a lot of turmoil, because we had to make sure that the donors stayed aligned with where we were at. We had to bring them in, we had to bring the board in, we had to talk to them, explain what was going on. It was things outside of the nonprofit's control, things outside of the fundraiser's control, but we still had to involve them in the process because you have to involve people in the process with you. Alignment came first and then giving followed. By the time that the public moment arrived, leadership knew where momentum would come from and the room was already warm, which is huge. Probably the most beneficial piece of designing a night around giving. Generosity moves quickly when that happens. And this is the same across everything that we work with. And whenever it comes to fundraising, marketing, branding, operations, we help our clients with campaign strategy. We help them with capital campaign preparation. And you might say, what's the difference in campaign strategy and capital campaigns? But capital campaigns are really reaching towards one big goal. And so campaigns are different. But anyways, we'll go to donor communication is another thing that we focus on. Team and leadership restructuring. I mean, the list goes on and on. The execution when stakes are high. These are just things that we do for our clients and our partners because we want to be there for them whenever they're struggling, and to be a resource that we have our expertise. We know what works. We have decades of experience in this with my team. A lot of church and nonprofits have things that they've tried and worked, but the landscape's changing. Donors are changing. Donors are getting older. New donors are entering the space. Gen Z is, I think it makes up 30% of the church in 2026. It's crazy. So things are changing. The landscape's changing, but if you just apply the simple fundamentals that I'm going through in this video, you're going to see a ton of success. So for our teams, our clients, we work with them at every level, whether that's a $100,000 night they're fundraising for a broad donor base, or they're going for that $20 million campaign and above. Or maybe they're just an organization really just trying to survive a crisis. Like I said, the work is pretty much the same at the core. It's fundamentally the same. You need clarity, you need structure or sequence, and you need support. You need something that is scalable and repeatable and matches with your donor. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, man, I'd really like help applying that to my organization, to my church, my nonprofit, whatever it is that you're in, you can go ahead and just book a call with me. I have some availability, not always, but you get on my calendar, you can see what kind of time I have. We'll walk through your context. We'll walk through whether or not this would even be the right framework for you, or maybe you need some adjusting. Everything's unique, but honestly, those fundamentals are the same. And we've templatized a lot of things. So if there's something that we can help you with, we'll walk through your goals and everything going on, and we'll make sure that this works. And, if what we're offering is not a good fit for you, we'll tell you. Like, I'm not pitching you anything. I'm not going to give you pressure into working with me and my team. To be honest, we turn away some people, but I love coaching people. I love to help people just see clarity. And usually within that, I can find a way to work with people. Either way, though, I'm going to keep sharing what works. So either way, I'm going to keep sharing my heart, keep sharing updates, follow along, and maybe you'll get something good out of it. I hope you do. So, we're going to keep sharing what's working with churches and nonprofits and ways that they can fund their mission, grow in revenue, grow in operations, and scale with integrity, clarity, and just sound biblical advice and counsel. So if you want to, just go ahead and book with the link below, and I will talk to you soon.